Esther chapter 3. Interesting chapter. Chapter 3. Only 15 verses long. And who is this king? Who do we think he is in secular history that's in Susa, sitting on this throne? Huh? Yeah, but who do we think he is according to secular history? Huh? Xerxes. I think that is who it is. And he is now has Esther as his queen. Theo had the lesson last week. I appreciate him taking over. But now something comes up. So what I find interesting is some of the wordage used here in these first few verses where the king, it says he promoted Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, and advanced him and established his authority over all the princes who were with him. So the Agagite, what do we know about the Agagites? Do you know who that might be? There's two possibilities. There is a city, Agag, but there is also the king, the Amalekites, that he is a descendant of. And I think that's who this is. I think Haman is a descendant of the Amalekites. So that would make him an Amalekite also. What do we know about the Amalekites? Good fellers who helped the Israelites in their travels to the Promised Land? Kind of lit a fire under them to get moving? They're the ones that were attacking the rear of the Israelites while they were traveling. And they would just come up and they'd do these little raids and hit them and back off. Eventually they had to stop, turn around and fight them. And that's when Moses was up on the mountain. Remember, he'd hold his arms up and they would succeed. And when his arms came down, the Amalekites would succeed. What did God think about the Amalekites? Not a fan. He was going to blot them out from generation to generation, and eventually going to wipe them out. And one day he did finally give the command to wipe them out. And who did he give it to? No. It was to Saul. And did Saul take the Amalekites out? Told him to kill the king, the men, the women, the children, the sheep, the dog. No, he did not kill them all. He did not kill the king.
Alive, and he took all the choice animals.
Right, I was going to give it to you as a sacrifice. And so they have always been a thorn to the Israelites. And I think Haman is descendant of them. Yes?
And who killed the king? Because it's unusual.
Who killed the Amalekite king? Amalek?
Samuel.
Was it Samuel? Boy, that's right.
Samuel took a sword and chopped him up.
That's right. They chopped him up. And that is correct. But back over here. So, yeah, Haman is, I think, an Amalekite. And the king is the one who advanced and established his authority. Verse 2, all the king's servants who were at the king's gate bowed down and paid homage to Haman. Why? For so the king had commanded concerning him. So the king commanded. Now, when you have somebody who is in a high station of authority, would you not normally pay homage and respect to that person? Would you need to be commanded by the king to do this? Do we ever see anywhere in the Bible where a king has to command people to pay homage to a high official? No. You don't see it. But even the princes had to be told, you do this. Now let's look through the Bible for a moment. Where do we see, even with the Israelites, the Hebrews, people paying homage and bowing to kings that are not really their kings, but showing them respect and by bowing to them? Do we see that anywhere in Scripture from the Jews, the Hebrews doing that to other kings? The Philistines, yeah, he did that to them. He even did it to Saul. So yeah, there's David to others. Where else?
Melchizedek.
Oh yeah, Abraham bowing to Melchizedek. Not only him, but to other kings as well that were not like Melchizedek.
Probably Pharaoh.
Perhaps. I don't know if it words it that they did or not, but perhaps. Daniel to Nebuchadnezzar. Daniel's friends to Nebuchadnezzar, but not to the golden image of Nebuchadnezzar. But they did show that respect in many other places as well. But here, they are commanded by the king concerning him that they are to bow down, to pay homage to this Haman. So it seems to me, maybe, and I don't think I'm stretching it seems to me that Haman is not the kind of person that that commands respect. That you want to, that you really say, hey, man, there's Haman. You know Haman, right? The great general. But he wasn't. He was put there and established by the king. And you've been commanded to bow to him. So how did he get this position? What did he do? Who is he? Secular history has nothing about this man. We don't know who he is. He's a nobody, from what we know. And I think that's probably what he is. I think he's a nobody, probably had a lot of money, and paid his way into the position. He did not earn it. People who earn it earn respect. In fact, actually, I got. I'll come to those later on, here it is. Proverbs. Yeah, this is how I think is the best way to see Haman. We're going to see all 77 of these about Haman in Proverbs 6, verse 16, where it says, "There are 6 things which the Lord hates, yes, 7 which are an abomination to him." And as, not just in this chapter, but throughout the rest of Esther, see if you see all these things about Haman. Haughty eyes, a lying tongue, and hands that shed innocent blood, a heart that devises wicked plans, feet that run rapidly to evil, a false witness who utters lies, and one who spreads strife among brothers. Sound like Haman? Sounds like a worthless fella, and that sounds like Haman. And then when we get into verses the 3 and following, before I get there, here it is. I thought I had a quote here. This British writer, Walter Landor. You ever heard of Walter Landor, a British writer? Wrote back in the early 1800s. But he had this line. You maybe would recognize this. "When little men cast long shadows, it is a sign that the sun is setting." When little men cast long shadows, it is a sign that the sun is setting. And that is Haman. I see that there with him. Aesop.
You know who he's talking about.
Oh, I know what he's talking about, yes. But it is a good line. Aesop fables. My kids have to learn a lot of the fables of Aesop. And he writes, "Fools take to themselves the respect that is given to their office." And then Albert Einstein, "Try not to become a man of success, but try to become a man of value." But Haman is a man who tries to be a man of success. His promotion may have brought out, or this promotion may have brought out really the worst in this man. Now, why do we see here at the very end of verse 2, Mordecai neither bowed down nor paid homage? Why did Mordecai refuse to bow down to Mordecai? Why do you think? Because, like where you mentioned, Daniel, he bowed to Nebuchadnezzar, so did his 3 friends, and Nebuchadnezzar has some issues and problems. Why did Mordecai refuse to bow down to him? Was he wrong to not bow to him? He had no respect for the man. Why not? Oh, well, yeah, it's just not a good fellow. Nebuchadnezzar wasn't really a nice guy either.
Well, he sat at the gate. He probably heard some things, probably knew some things, knew what was going on inside the court.
Yeah, that's true. I think, and I think those are all true, but I think it's because he knew he was an Amalekite. What did God think about those Amalekites? Who was it that killed King Saul? You remember? It was this boy he had called over, and he asked him to kill him, run him through. And when he came, he told David what he had done, and David asked who he was, and he told him, I'm an Amalekite. What did David do to him? Killed him. He's an Amalekite. Saul dealt in a way with the Amalekites he should not have, and the crown was removed from him. Mordecai refused to bow down to the man who's an Amalekite, and in the end, over in Esther chapter 8, he gets a crown. Saul lost his, but he gets it. A golden crown at the end. And so maybe I'm wrong, but I think that that's what it is. You may remember what Joab said about King David in 2 Samuel 19. You love your enemies and hate your friends. And I think Mordecai is thinking, I'm not going to be like that. So Mordecai's controversy with Haman was not a personal quarrel with a proud and difficult man. I think it was a declaration that he is on God's side. Because, look at verse 3. Then the king's servants who were at the king's gate said to Mordecai, why are you transgressing the king's command? Now it was when they had spoken daily to him, and he would not listen to them, that they told Haman to see whether Mordecai's reason would stand. So what was his reason for not bowing? At the very end, for he had told them that he was a Jew. This is why I don't do it. I am a Jew. But you can't say, oh, Jews don't bow to foreigners, because that's not true. I think it's because that's an Amalekite. That's an enemy of the Jews and of God. And I think that's what's going on here. Verse 5, when Haman saw that Mordecai neither bowed down nor paid homage to him, Haman was filled with rage. But he disdained to lay hands on Mordecai alone, for they had told him who the people of Mordecai were. Therefore Haman sought to destroy all the Jews. Now that's interesting. Now why? Why would he say, well, I'm not going to kill Mordecai? When he found out that he was a Jew, I'm going to kill all the Jews. I wonder if he remembers, I know what the Jews tried to do to us. And now I'm going to wipe them out. I think that's what's going on in his mind. This is my chance to have a little payback for everything they've done to us. This was his chance. And I would think it was also pride. He's just a boastful, arrogant, prideful, petty man. Now, Mordecai is not the only person in the Bible who, for conscience sake, you could say, practiced, using a term that's being thrown around a lot today, civil disobedience. Do you think he's practicing civil disobedience? Yes. Yeah. Who else in the Bible practiced civil disobedience? Yep, those. That's Daniel and his friends. Who else? Jesus did. How about the midwives to all the Hebrew children, to Pharaoh? They definitely practiced it. The apostles in Acts chapter 5, when they were told to stop preaching Jesus, they practiced civil disobedience. But note that in each one of those instances, the people had a direct word from God that gave them assurance they were doing God's will, not their will, what they wanted. And also, in every one of these, the believers were kind and they were respectful. They didn't start riots. They didn't burn down buildings for conscience sake. And the reason why I'm bringing this up, I saw this guy. He is a pastor. That's what he calls himself. He preaches in a place he calls it a church. And he says that anybody who does not support Antifa is not a Christian. Because if Jesus was here today, this is from him, he'd be part of Antifa. First thing that popped in my head was Antifa tried to burn down a house with people in it. And I know Jesus would not do that. They would not. That is not the kind of civil disobedience he's talking about. Civil authority is ordained by God. It is a serious thing for us to disobey the law. And if we were going to do it, we must know the difference between personal prejudices and biblical convictions. So if someone came to me and said, if you don't stop preaching against the homosexual lifestyle, we're going to throw you in jail, I'm going to practice civil disobedience. If they arrest me and put me in chains and lead me away, I'm not going to resist. I'm going to go. Just like Paul and Silas and all the others did. And that's what I'll do. I will not be party to that kind of violence. Mordecai, you have to admire him for his courageous stand. Certainly God had put him and Esther into their official position so that they might save their people from annihilation. But we continue on. We're about 10 more minutes. We see in verses 7 and following, that in verse 7 it says, in the first month, which is the month of Nisan, in the 12th year of the king, that is, the lot was cast before Haman, from day to day and from month to month. What they're saying is there, he's gone to some sort of seers, or maybe they're star watchers. They're casting lots, and they're throwing them on days and on months. They're looking to their gods for when is the right time to destroy the Jews. That's what's going on in this verse. He's looking for when do we do this? And so it fell on the 12th month, that is the month of Adar. Verse 8, then Haman said to the king, there is a certain people scattered and dispersed among the peoples in all the provinces of your kingdom. Their laws are different from those of all other people, and they do not observe the king's laws. So it is not in the king's interest to let them remain. If it is pleasing to the king, let it be decreed that they be destroyed, and I will pay 10,000 talents of silver into the hands of those who carry on the king's business to put into the king's treasuries. Now let's examine that. So the Jews, how does he portray the Jews to the king?
Rebel rousers.
Okay, yeah, they're stirring up problems. They don't listen to you. This is tantamount. It almost sounds like these people are almost going to get to a point they're going to overthrow the government. Now, when the decree goes out, you remember that from the Pew Packer at the very end of the chapter here. How were the people in the city of Susa? How did they respond to the decree? Why were they confused by it? If this was a people who didn't obey the king, and a people who did not show respect to the king, and then this proclamation came out, I'd be like, well, that's not surprising. But apparently, they found it very surprising that they're going to be killed. What did these people do? That's what the people in the nation are thinking. So do you think Haman lied or overly exaggerated what was going on? Yeah. Liar. Like the proverb, the 6 things I hate, that's 7. Yes.
Good question. The 2 months named were Jewish names.
Yeah.
Just odd that they would.
Well, because it was a Jew who wrote the letter. I'm not sure what month they were using, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't the Hebrew month system.
Again, we know the Babylonian names for Belteshazzar and the rest of it.
Anyway, so my point here is that he is making stuff up. He is lying. And then the king takes his signet ring from his hand, gave it to Haman, son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, the enemy of the Jews, verse 10 says. The king said to Haman, the silver is yours, and the people also, to do with them as you please. The silver is yours is typical in that day period. You would deny taking it with the understanding you're going to receive it. I think Haman knew that the king was in need of money because what just happened a few years ago? Big defeat. And he's lost a lot of money. And 10,000 talents of silver will go a long way. He doesn't even question it. Just gives him the ring and says, you go, you have at it. I'll take the silver. Haman knew it. He's easily played, as he is continually easily played, and through secular history, he is easily played by people to do what they want him to do. And so, he immediately, in verse 12, he has them write up the order for to be sent out. And then the letters in verse 13 are given to the couriers, taken to all the provinces to destroy, to kill, and to annihilate all the Jews, both young and old, women and children, in one day, the 13th day of the 12th month, which is the month of Adar, and to seize their possessions as plunder. Seize their possessions will help encourage people to do it and kill them. In one day, he wants them wiped out. Kind of similar to what God told Saul to do to his people. And a copy of the edict was issued as law to every province, was published to all the people, so that they should be ready for this day. The couriers went out and impelled by the king's command, while the decree was issued at the citadel in Susa. And while the king and Haman sat down to drink, after sending out mass murder, the city of Susa was in confusion. Why would you do this? What kind of this king just throwing out some random thing that the people are confused by, they don't understand it. So what kind of man is Haman? And what kind of man is King Xerxes? Bad. They could care less. The king doesn't think through anything. He's not thinking at all. Hey, you're going to line my pocket? Do whatever you want. And he'll let it happen. And then that evening, we'll sit down and have a drink. Not even think about the millions and millions. They just signed their lives away. Haman, I don't mind. I'm happy with my day. I'm so excited. I'm going to sit down and have a drink with the king. What a great day. As the rest of the city, the whole nation is in total confusion about why is this happening. And he doesn't even know his own queen is a Jew. Hasn't a clue. What do we learn? What do we learn for ourselves in this passage? If you were there, if you were a Jew at that time, what would you think? And this decree came out, you knew in 1 year, all Jews are set to die. What would you think?
Load up my camel, get out of there.
Well, you can't. You're a slave pretty much to the nation. You can't leave.
You might think, has God abandoned us?
Man, has God abandoned us? Yeah, maybe. Why would he allow? Because what are you going to do against this?
Or you might think God is going to save us.
Yeah, like Mordecai. If not you, he'll raise up another, he said to Esther. Well, this is going to really test the faith of the Jews. Where are they at? Just like Joseph's brothers. When all was lost, boy, they can't go back to their father without Benjamin. They are at a point where, you know what? Take us as slaves. And their faith was tested, and it was found to be genuine. It had changed. We see that also with Esther, or we will. We'll see it with Mordecai, and apparently with many of the Jews as well.
Notice the contrast. Since you mentioned Joseph, an outsider made number 2 in the country.
Yep.
An outsider made number 2 to Ahasuerus. One was significantly more successful than the other.
We're actually going to be looking at that when we get further in. The parallels between the story of Joseph and the book of Esther is pretty strong. First time I ever caught on to that was when I was reading through J.W. McGarvey in his studies of the two books, and he made a lot of correlation between those, that being one of those. Very good. Good catch, Jim. A lot of things we can learn from this, especially about trusting in God, even when things seem insurmountable. Like there's just absolutely no hope, and it's just confusion. And the people in charge, the people who are making the laws, seem to have no clue, or they just don't care. And yet, in the end, God is in control. And that is what we're going to learn from the book of Esther.